years of Australian weather and what records say is happening from the sea to the snow.
Has the weather changed in the last 100 years or not? So I'm heading on an investigation that's all about the simple facts. Real tidal gauges, actual temperature records. And this will be a proper weather report, going round Australia to the places you and I live and play. It's time to take the temperature of Australia. And when it comes to weather, there's one organisation perfectly placed to guide me. They formed 100 years ago. They are the Bureau of Meteorology. Hello, Carl.
How's it going, Jonica?
Good, and so you're going to run us through a national 100-year Australia health check / weather report.
That's right. Today we're going to do a national roundup of Australia's temperature, hydration and its circulation.
Fantastic. So I reckon we start straight away with temperature, which means I'm heading here. I don't want to start with the heat, but with the cold. Is it as cold as it used to be? And where better to view the cold than from our nation's frosty tips? Our enchanted, legendary snowy mountains, where I love to ski. And those Nordic genes of mine have a keen interest in what's happened to the snow. Well, this is 1964, the biggest dump on record. You look at photos like this and you think things must have changed, but have they really? Is it anecdotal or real? To find out, you have to go to the records. We're off to Spencer's Creek, where the Snowy Hydro Scheme has been taking snow depth measures every week since 1954. Dr. Ken Green has been monitoring the snow for decades.
We've got 65 inches, which...
Inches?
Yes, inches. It's been done since 1954, so they're not going to change their methods now. There's about 162 centimetres.
Snow cover swings wildly from year to year, so the best way to see the signal in the record is to compress it into 5-year average trends. So how are we going to do the trend line?
Well, I can put this in as the trend line.
In 60 years, we've lost 1/3 of our total snow cover. But there is some rough comfort for my skiing aspirations, and that is that the beginning of the season hasn't really changed. So basically, since 1954, snow depth in July is much the same. When you reach September, it starts to drop off, so that by October, it's noticeably less. Essentially, spring is coming earlier. It's even clearer when you look at the records for the thaw, now 2 weeks earlier than in the 60s. And the snow line appears to have lately moved up from 1,500 metres to 1,600 metres.
This actually used to be a ski run coming down here across the road, and now you wouldn't even dream of us.
So what has happened to Australia's cold? Right, our first national roundup. So we're looking at minimum temperatures. And Carl, basically this is how cold it gets at night.
That's correct, Jonica. If we start at the snowy here, we've warmed by about 1.1 degrees since a century ago. And that's similar to Perth, Sydney. If we're looking over here at Cairns, it's almost 2 degrees since 1910.
2 degrees, so hot nights.
Well, hotter nights than they used to have, yeah, on average.
And how do we know this to be true? Well, because frankly, the data collection behind it is mind-boggling. This is the Victorian regional headquarters of the Bureau of Meteorology. So how many things are kind of feeding into all of this?
Too much really for the brain to comprehend, to be honest, and that's why we have a lot of alerts that help us.
But I bet what most of you are more interested in is what's happened to daytime maximums, and for that, I'm heading here. This is another one of my favourite spots in Australia. Sassy, sexy St Kilda, Melbourne. I lived here in my 20s, and coming from Sydney and Perth, can I say Melbourne had a bit of a reputation for its weather. So when I moved here, I bought a coat, a scarf, gloves, and these. But what no one told me was how darn hot it was going to get. And I'm not the only one shedding her coat early. Butterflies are really temperature sensitive. Melbourne's common brown butterfly now emerges from its chrysalis nearly 2 weeks earlier than in 1940. So how much hotter has Melbourne got? Okay, Doctor, our national roundup of maximum temperatures, so what do we have?
You can see here, Sydney through to Melbourne, Canberra, Hobart, they've warmed up by about 0.7 of a degree, and then some capitals a lot less, Adelaide 0.3. But if you go over to the west, Perth, and into the centre, Alice Springs, you've got 1.1 to almost 2 degrees of warming.
Wow. In 100 years, the centre has heated up more than the coast. So the further inland you are in Australia, the more the maximum temperatures will have gone up?
As a general trend, yeah.
Essentially, what the records show is that global warming isn't something that's coming. It's here, in our backyards already. It's pointless now to ask, is this climate change or natural variability? What we see is one acting on top of the other.
So every parcel of air, every ocean current, every weather system is now about a degree warmer. And when you go through and do the physics, that's actually a hell of a lot of energy added to the climate system in general.